There is no doubt that Lindsey Graham is one of the most well-known Republican senators in the United States. Graham has stayed relevant and important by being outspoken and often controversial, even though he has changed sides of many relationships. The real truth about Graham's personal life and his partners, on the other hand, doesn't get enough attention. But let's look into the South Carolina senator's past first, shall we? Lindsey Graham was born on July 9, 1955, in a segregated part of South Carolina. Her life was hard and humble. He lived with his parents, Millie and Florence James Graham, and his sister as a child in the back room of their bar, the Sanitary Cafe, which was also a diner. He had to share a bathroom with people who worked at a nearby mill plant because of this. The family eventually moved to a nearby house and then to a trailer. Graham started working as a rack boy at the downstairs pool hall, all when he was 12 years old, to help support his family financially. Growing up quickly was hard for Graham because he was the first child and had to live and work at the bar from a very young age. It did, however, put him in dangerous places too early in life. One of his jobs was to answer the phone for worried wives who were looking for their drunk husbands. Besides these duties, Graham saw firsthand how hard it was to live in segregation. The bar wouldn't let black people drink beer there, even though about 20% of Central's people are African American. He will never forget how this discrimination affected him when he was growing up. Graham didn't always get straight A's in high school. He got a C in school, in fact. It didn't stop him from having big dreams, though. He told his teacher one time that he wanted to be governor one day, which made all of his friends laugh out loud. He graduated from Daniel High School and got a SAT score of only 800 out of 1600. Many people might have thought he couldn't go to college. Graham was set on his goal, though. He got into the University of South Carolina and will be the first person in his family to go to college. While Graham was at college, he got a very important call telling him to go home right away. When he got there, his mother was in bad shape because she had an advanced stage of Hodgkin's lymphoma. She was taken to the hospital right away, but she didn't make it. Not long after that, Graham got another sad call. His sister, who is 13, found their father dead in his bed after a huge heart attack. Being his sister's formal guardian was something Graham did since both of his parents had died. The service let him keep studying at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, so he could stay close to home and take care of her. Graham went right into active duty after graduating from the University of South Carolina School of Law. In 1982, he joined the U.S. Air Force as an attorney in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. He first worked as a defense lawyer in the Air Force and was then sent to Rhine-Main Air Base in Frankfurt, Germany. He was in charge of the Air Force's defense in Europe from 1984 to 1988. During this time, he was on an episode of 60 Minutes defending an Air Force pilot who was accused of using marijuana. This showed that the Air Force's drug testing methods were not working properly. Graham went to Europe for a while and then came back to South Carolina. When he got out of the military in 1989, he went into private business as a lawyer. From 1988 to 1992, he was Vice County Attorney for Oconee County. From 1990 to 1994, he was City Attorney for Central. Graham joined the South Carolina Air National Guard in 1989 after leaving the Air Force. He stayed there until 1995 before moving to the United States, the Reserve Air Force. During the Gulf War in 1990–1991, he was called back to active duty as a judge advocate at McEntire Air National Guard Station in Eastover, South Carolina. There, he taught pilots about the rules of war before they left. In the US, Graham was promoted to colonel in 2004 after being raised to lieutenant colonel in 1998. Air Force Reserve. The event took place at the White House, and President George Bush was in charge. In the same year, Graham got into some trouble with the law. The lower court first said it was okay for Graham to be a military judge while also being a senator. In 2006, though, the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces said that wasn't right and that he shouldn't have had both jobs at the same time. Graham served in Iraq as a reserve on active duty twice in 2007. The first time was in April, and the second time was for 2 weeks in August. Detainees and problems of the rule of law. He didn't stop there, though. During August 2009, when the Senate was not meeting, he went to Afghanistan to do more work. He was later given the job of senior teacher at the Judge Advocate General's School, but he never started that job. Graham was given the Bronze Star in 2014 for his great work as an Air Force top legal advisor in Iraq and Afghanistan. From August 2009 to July 2014, he was in charge of making sure that military prisoners were held safely. Graham retired as a colonel from the Air Force in 2015 after more than 33 years of service. He had hit the age of retirement for his rank, which was 60. His military pay didn't come in while he was a congressman or senator because he was working for the federal government and wasn't qualified for one. It was a busy time for Graham. He was moving up in the Air Force and making big steps in his political career, which he began in 1994. That year, Graham saw a great chance to make his youth dream of becoming a politician come true. He had once dreamed of being governor, but this was a big step in the right direction. At that time, Democratic U.S. Congressman Butler Derrick had chosen to step down after 20 years of serving South Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. When Graham saw his chance, he gave it his all. Because he was determined and had some luck on his side, Graham worked hard to get people to vote for him. Because he was in the military and was very determined, a lot of people were interested in him. It was helped by Republican U.S. Strom Thurmond that he ran against Derrick for the job. Bob Cantrell got 33% of the vote, and Ed Allgood got 15%. Graham won the Republican primary with 52% of the vote. When it came to the general election, Graham ran against Democratic State Senator James Bryan Jr. Graham easily won, getting 60% of the vote to Bryan's 40%. Part of the bigger Republican revolution that year was this win. Since 1877, Graham is the first Republican to have served as a representative for the area. Deb Dorn, who came from a strong political family, ran against Graham in 1996. Butler Derrick was her uncle, and her father, William Jennings Bryan Dorn, had been a congressman for a long time. Even though he was challenged, Graham won re-election with 60% of the vote, leaving Dorn with 40%. After 2 years, in 1998, Graham didn't even have to work hard for his 3rd term. Not a single person ran against him, so he easily won. In 2000, Graham was back in politics and running against Democrat George Breitharp. Even though the race was close, Graham's popularity stayed high, and he won a comfortable 4th term with 68% of the vote, while Breitharp came in last with 30%. From 2002 to 2004, when the famous US Lindsey Graham knew it was his time when Strom Thurmond finally chose to step down. It wasn't a surprise that he easily won the Republican primary to fill Thurmond's seat. In the general election, though, the real fight was against Alex Sanders, who had been president of the College of Charleston and top judge of the South Carolina Court of Appeals. Sanders had a good list of skills, but Graham's effort never stopped. On election day, Graham easily won with 610 votes, while Sanders only got 487,359. This gave Graham 54% of the vote, while Sanders only got 44%. It was more than just a political win. It made history. South Carolina had not had a new U.S. Senator since Fritz Hollings in 1966, when Graham took office. Things got interesting when Graham ran for a 2nd term in 2008. Buddy Witherspoon, who was on the National Executive Committee of the South Carolina Republican Party, ran against him in the primary. However, most people were surprised when he won by a large margin, with 186,398 votes to Witherspoon's 92,547, or 66.82% to 33.188%. Graham won all but one of South Carolina's 46 counties, making him almost unbeatable across the state. It was a different story in the general election. Graham was running against pilot and engineer Bob Conley, who had won the Democratic ticket. Even though Conley had a great background, Graham's campaign was much stronger. Graham won easily with $1,076,534 votes to Conley's $790,621, giving him a 57.53% win rate on election day. Graham spent an amazing $6.06 million on his campaign, while Conley only spent $15,000. Graham had a great track record of winning races until 2014. But that year, he was seen as one of the most vulnerable Republican senators running for re-election. Because he had low approval numbers and was known to work with and compromise with Democrats, he was an easy target for a primary challenge. Conservative activists like the Tea Party movement wanted to get rid of him. The head of the Club for Growth, Chris Chakala, even said that his group would support a primary challenger if a good candidate came forward. Even with these threats, there wasn't a real challenger, and most people thought Graham would win. This was mostly because he was good at moving around and being violent when he saw a threat. Graham made friends with people from the state's congressional delegation who might run against him and helped them raise money and get the committee jobs they wanted. He also set up a powerful political machine called the Graham Machine. It had 6 regional offices across the state and a network of over 5,000 precinct leaders and thousands of paid staff and volunteers, built up a huge campaign war chest and flooded South Carolina with good ads. Putting his attention on helping his constituents and local problems made him more appealing. Graham didn't try to please Tea Party followers. Instead, he talked to them straight on and said that the Republican Party needed to be more open to everyone. As the Republican primary got closer, all of his hard work finally started to pay off, and at the same time, his approval numbers went up a lot. And when it was time to vote, he won with 178,833 votes, which was way more than his closest competitor, State Senator Lee Bright, who got only 48,904 votes, or 15.4%. Graham kept running for senator for the whole time, even though it caused a lot of trouble. His thoughts on running for president began to change in 2014. After less than a year, he chose to follow through on his childhood dream and run for president again in 2016. He didn't have as much help this time as he did in the Senate races. Because there were so many other Republican candidates, Lindsey's poll numbers were so low that you had to use a magnifying glass to see them. He had to deal with tough people like Donald Trump. His effort was a huge failure from the start, which is sad. He still shot at Trump every chance he got, though. For one thing, he didn't like how brash Trump was. Trump's shoot-from-the-hip style of speech was very different from the more formal, well-thought-out style Graham was used to. He often used humor and sarcasm to make his point and show how ridiculous he thought Trump's policy ideas were. But sometimes he didn't hold back. He called Trump a jerk, a religious bigot, and even told him to go to hell. Trump always had a way to answer back, though. His phone number was even read out loud in a news conference one time. Not long after that, Graham took a look around and saw the writing on the wall. On December 21, 2015, he chose to quit his fight for president. It's interesting that Graham's tune changed completely after Trump won the election. In March 2017, he met with Trump and things went awfully well. In fact, Graham liked Trump so much that he gave Trump his new phone number. Around October 2017, they were playing golf together more than once. Once, Graham said Trump was a crazy person who wasn't fit to be president. Now he was singing a different tune, praising their first golf trip like they were old friends. In April 2018, Graham said in public that he would vote for Trump again in 2020. For someone who was one of Trump's harshest foes in the 2016 primaries, this was a huge change. Even after all the big news networks said that Joe Biden would win the 2020 presidential election, Graham still supported Trump. That was not the end of his partnership. He spoke at Trump's first primetime campaign gathering for 2024 on January 28, 2023. He also went on Fox News with Sean Hannity and said again that he supported Trump. Since we already talked about it, Graham helped raise his sister Darlene after both of their parents died within 15 months of each other. He was 22 years old and she was 13. One of the hardest things he had to go through was losing both parents and having to take care of his sister like a mom. Even though he loved Darlene very much, it was very hard for a 22-year-old to take on such a big burden. They became very close, though, because of this event. They were almost unable to be apart. So much so that, when he ran for president in 2015, Darlene said she wanted to go with him on the campaign trail a lot to show people his calmer side. She wanted to be there to show the caring side of his personality that the public might not always see. There's not much known about Lindsey Graham's love life. This isn't because he's very private, but because it hasn't been very interesting. He had a lover named Debbie when he was in law school, but they broke up. Then, while he was in the Air Force in Germany, he dated Carol, a fellow JAG officer who later worked for Colin Powell. But he did have a close relationship with an air hostess named Sylvia that almost ended in marriage. During his year at an airbase in Germany, Graham fell in love and then broke up with her. The couple broke up because Graham wasn't planning to stay in Germany and her old mother couldn't move to South Carolina. Even though there was potential, they went their different ways. Granger's life has not been trouble-free, though. A gay adult film star named Sean Harding made a shocking claim on Twitter in 2020, which made things a little bad. The term Lady G was used to show that he thought Lindsey Graham was gay, which he said was Graham's sex worker friend's nickname. This claim made a lot of people angry on social media and brought up old rumours about Graham's personal life. People talked about how Graham was seen in gay bars and with people of the same gender. This was especially funny because in October 2010, he took a lot of heat for standing up for people who were against gay marriage. Despite all of this, Graham has always rejected these claims in public and made it clear that he is straight, even though his love life has been quiet. The exact location of Graham's home is not known to the public, which is understandable for safety and privacy reasons. We do know that he lives in Seneca, South Carolina. There is a nice little town called Seneca in Oconee County in the northwest of the state. It is close to the Blue Ridge Mountains and Lake Kiowas. His neighborhood in Seneca is typical of the area because it has both suburban and rural traffic. It's the kind of place where you can enjoy peace and quiet while still being close to nature and community facilities. Graham has also made some good purchases, such as a 10,000 square foot office building in Seneca, South Carolina. In 2007, he paid $2.05 million for this house. Nevertheless, the building's worth has grown a great deal over the years, and it is now worth about $4 million. A 254 square foot wooden townhouse in Washington, D.C. is another interesting property. He paid $225,000 for this townhouse in 1997. Along with his other land, this home's value has gone up a lot as well, and is thought to be worth about $800,000 right now. For when Graham is in the nation's capital and not at his home in Seneca, he lives in this townhouse. Being in a handy place makes it easy for him to balance his work as a lawmaker with a nice place to live.